Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by fans for fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing? Going to get into a little bit of reporting from some of the news that came around yesterday. Going to talk a little college football with you, but as far as the trade deadline goes, man, there's always something unexpected every year. It's all kind of unexpected, but this particular set of circumstances has really kind of left me like, holy crap, the news that came out yesterday is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to listen to offers for Brian Thomas Jr. So the reason I'm talking about this is because this is just such a very rare set of circumstances where a player of this caliber, last year going for 1,210 with I think about almost 80 catches, as a rookie. The biggest reason that I'm going to bring it up is because of the Jayden Daniels connection. He was Jayden Daniels number 2, more of a 1B, 1A, 1B with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Man, all three of these guys, at LSU. I mean, honestly, with the defense, I mean that was a national championship roster as far as everything that they had on offense together. I told you I'm not really in favor of this team making a trade. I would think being a seller, if you even had an asset to be a seller with, maybe the Dorrance Armstrong, if he stayed healthy, maybe you could have sold him off for a piece to look forward to having more capital in this draft. I'm going to get into the draft aspect of this later. I'm going to highlight a game from yesterday that was just very, very. I mean, they just have the names. They have the names and they have the players at the position that, really, really would capitalize as far as the Commanders improving in this offseason. So this is more of another offseason projection for this team. But the reason that I'm talking about Brian Thomas Jr. is because, typically what I was talking about when I talk about trades is a lot of teams, there's a reason that they're willing to part ways with the team. And clearly if they're willing to move this player right now, there's got to be something going on behind the scenes. I mean, Cohen has taken over as the coach. Maybe there's something in the locker room. Maybe he just doesn't fit stylistically, personality traits. There's a lot of things that come into football, man. But when you have a guy that his rookie season goes off for the type of numbers that Brian Thomas Jr. went off for last year, it's I can't even think of the last time a second year player has been moved. Especially a first round player, especially one that put up Pro Bowl level numbers and things like that. So the biggest thing for me is the reason I wanted to talk about it was because of his connection with Jayden Daniels already. This is a player that knows Jayden Daniels. He excelled against every premier corner last year. For the reason they would trade him, this year, look at the amount of drops that he's had. There were some drop issues that he had at LSU last year. You just saw him not have that plague him. This year you're seeing it plague him. He has a shoulder injury that he just picked up, this past week against the Rams. You saw it in when they were out in London. So again, as I always say, when it comes to these veteran players and things like that, they're coming with some kind of baggage. There's something, like Marshawn Lattimore, we had the hamstring injury and stuff like that. Right now, you're looking at a player that's not producing to the same clip that he was producing at last year. These are clips from the previous season. These aren't the clips from this season. But you're watching this guy. You're talking about a 4'4", 4'3" athlete at 6'3", 210, 215 pounds. And this is the type of player that teams do not walk away from, man. Not at the wide receiver position. Everything that this team has tried to do, over the years, they've never even had a wide receiver for Trevor Lawrence. And then, it seems like they have that position, and then they go Travis Hunter, who gives them a little bit of something on both sides of the ball. And he's developing in his own right because he's a special football player in his own right. But then you're thinking about all this, and you're like, dude, what to walk away from a player at this point in his career, there's something behind the scenes. That's really the only thing that you can think about, man. So you think you got to then okay. What do we talk about for cost? They drafted this guy in the first round. So trying to asset manage this. For you to walk away from a player in their second year, that says something about the player. So a team is going to be very cautiously. What's going on? They're going to ask a ton of questions. Of course they're going to try to maximize the return for this player. A lot of people are saying a first and a third, or whatever. It's all speculative until the trade is made or things like that. And will he get traded? Who knows? I mean, for me, this is such a rare incident, man. I've never seen a player with so many years left of team control on a rookie deal, which is exactly where you want these wide receivers. Wide receivers and edge rushers and quarterbacks, man. The best thing you can do is have them on a rookie contract, because you just had the team control for 5 years. You would still have team control on this player for 3 more seasons after this. After next year, you have to pick up the 5th-year option for that, which will be an escalator in the cap hit. But either way, man, I mean, you're talking about a player that could have been a top 10 pick, fell a little bit because of a good wide receiver class and such a good defense and quarterback class and things like that. I mean, you had 6 quarterbacks go in the top 12, and this guy fell to the 20s. I mean, that just tells you right there. I mean, most quarterbacks, and there's not many classes where 6 quarterbacks go. This is the only one that's ever happened, in fact. So, I mean, even 4 or 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, I mean, it's pretty rare. So, I mean, for him to go after 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, that tells you he was a top 15 talent. I mean, realistically, outside of just the variant that you have with the quarterback position in that class. So the biggest thing with Brian Thomas Jr. for me, and the reason I'm even entertaining this, one, I got to talk about it too. I mean, because of the position. We're older at the position with Terry and Debo. You already made the trade for Debo, so I mean, how would you re-sign Debo? Things like that. Well, truth is you still have this guy for 3 more years on a rookie deal. You can very much make it happen in the framework of the cap. I mean, that still gives you a very expensive wide receiver room, not only in cap, demonstration, because you're going to be paying Debo probably more than the $20 million he's making this year on the cap, plus Terry McLaurin's average of about $28 to $30 million a year with his figures. Then you're adding another, whatever you pay for this guy, it's a lot of assets that go into one position. That said, this type of situation doesn't come available very often. So I mean, no matter what we do, trading for him or not, I don't really like. It'd be really hard for me to pull that trigger. But as a GM, as AP, you got to make the phone call, because you have the relationship with Jayden Daniels. His best football was played with Jayden Daniels. He had a really good season last year with Trevor Lawrence, and for everything that Trevor Lawrence is a first, a top overall pick, Trevor Lawrence has been very inconsistent. We have seen Jayden Daniels, even with the injuries this year and things like that, like he still knows how to put the ball in certain situations. This would be another asset to, take the top off of the defense. Another guy that can catch the ball underneath, and we could see him catch through contact last year. The reason he's not catching this year, man, a lot of that to me is concentration. There's something off. Can it be cleaned up this year? I don't really know if it would or if it could be cleaned up this year. But that said, there's a lot of things that go into this. And I mean, like at the end of the day, any team that's trying to get better, whether it's in the season, in the off season, there's certain windows that become available to you. And, I think Scott McLuhan, the old GM that was here with Jay Gruden for like a couple years, said it best. You always have a plan. Well, when Josh Norman became available at the end of the offseason, because the Carolina Panthers rescinded their franchise tag on him, which has never happened again. That was one of these rare situations that a blue level, red level player just all of a sudden out of nowhere became available, and you had to readjust your outlook, because cornerback is a premier position. Wide receiver in this league, when you get that type of impact, a 1,200-yard receiver with 10 touchdowns, we all know, dude, Terry McLaurin with 13 touchdowns last year, that was an outlier year for him with 1,000 yards. But you add in another guy that's capable of doing those type of numbers purely at the wide receiver position, beating guys over the top and winning their assignments, catching through contact and things like that, knowing he already has a rapport and timing with Jayden Daniels for multiple years in college. It's something you have to at least be into. We already know I'm a big scout guy. We already know that I'm dialed in with college and things like that. When I'm watching CJ Daniels in Miami U, Casey Conception, the way he's playing for Texas A&M, which I'm about to get into that with the LSU Texas A&M game, because there's a lot of players in that game that I wanted to highlight and talk about, just because I haven't gotten as much time for the college breakdowns as I would like to, even though I'm still watching the tape and doing my assessments and things like that. I haven't had the time to put it on the pod because it just from week to week. I mean, it's just hard to get numbers everywhere, and if I don't have enough to talk about, then I don't really like to make a special pod just for one little thing or one game. It's not. It's kind of a waste of time and assets when I'm doing all my grading. But this wide receiver class is becoming deep, so that's another reason that you have to look at this and you're like, okay, well, what would you give up for Brian Thomas Jr. realistically? I mean, for Washington, you have a third round pick, and then you have nothing in the second, you have nothing in the fourth, so you have nothing really else to offer this year. And do you want to start going ahead again, like you did with Larry Tunsil, like you did with Marshawn Latimer, where you're pushing more assets back into the future? You're drafting in DC the next year, man. You want to have as many picks as you can. You want to hear this fan base in DC in 2027 at the draft cheering as many times as you can, booing the Cowboys picks, booing the Eagles picks. You want that to be a festival. So trading future assets outside of this next upcoming class that's going to be in Pittsburgh, it's really, really hard to see them moving assets further into the future that they're taking away from this class, knowing that they need to get younger at the position. But the reason that I'm talking about this is because you're talking about a 23-year-old player. You're going to have 23 and 24 and 25-year-old players in this upcoming NFL draft. He was a young player coming out of college in his own right. So for the simple fact that, this is the type of player that you look to get with draft capital, a 23-year-old player with, blue level upside, which he clearly has. He showed that last year with Jayden Daniels. I mean, you're talking about probably hitting your ceiling as long as Jayden Daniels is healthy. The biggest position that's really, really haunted the game flow of this team is Terry McLaurin's absence. Deebo Samuel missing last week in Dallas. You really felt that the veteran presence around the locker room. It's been off. Now we've talked about how this team is an older team. We are still older at the wide receiver position. Adding a 23-year-old player with some juice, with some speed, with some height that can catch through contact, who has a rapport with your quarterback, who you look at as a blue level player, and for everything that you've seen on the field from him this year, nothing really takes away from anything he did last year. I mean, he's still playing that level ball. He still converts, negative down and distances and things like that. He's still playing to a level. Is there still progression that he needs to make? Yes, there's ways to progress. I post about it all the time, like on forums, things like that. I talk a lot of football, man, is what I do. But biggest thing with Jayden Daniels is sometimes I think this injury is going to be something that I think helps this boy develop into the future, because as Tom Brady and all these guys say, sometimes you just have to take the easy ones. Sometimes you just have to take that 3-yard slant. Sometimes you have to just do the quick game until it backs the defense up off and you really neutralize the pass rush with that. Right now, teams are just running and they're holding lanes and they're daring Jayden Daniels to run. Jayden Daniels, as he excels, as he gets more comfortable. Actually, and the truth is, and as guys beyond Zach Ertz can start hitting the underneath game with more regularity and giving Jayden Daniels a reason to trust him, but Jayden also has to trust his eyes and get rid of the ball in the little 3-yard slants and the drag routes and things like that to back teams off. I think Austin Eckler would have been a really critical piece in that department. For everything that I was saying about Austin Eckler starting for this team early in the season and how I didn't like it because we had Bill who could have loosened it up and been more effective in the run, I felt, and he's shown that he could. Now you're missing that dynamic from Austin Eckler with the quick outs and the wheel routes and things like that. And these are just things that Jayden Daniels is going to have to start connecting on to really back the defenses up off of him. And when he gets to that point, we already know what he can do with his legs. When he starts to systematically move the ball down the field, quickly getting rid of the ball without defenders getting hits and touches on him and him holding the ball to try to make that big play, when he really starts taking the underneath things like Tom Brady and guys like that, these pocket quarterbacks, is when he develops that with regularity, that aspect of his game, man, this offense is going to be unstoppable, man. And as you get younger additions and you see what this team is going to be moving forward. So again, talking about Brian Thomas Jr., man, it's just such a really good player. And whether I would give up the assets that they're ultimately going to take to move this player, I don't know, because if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm calling them. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm probably calling them. If I'm any level of contender in this league this year, I'm calling them. The Colts could call them. Another piece on that offense would really be nice with Tyler Warren. The way Daniel Jones is playing with Jonathan Taylor and the USC receiver, man. blanking on his name for some reason. Really good. He's a really solid player, man. He'd be a really solid 1B piece with Brian Thomas Jr. But they're not trading in that division to the Colts from the Jaguars. So again, that's another aspect of that. But yeah, I mean, if you're a contender, in which right now Washington is sub 500, we got a game against the Chiefs coming up tomorrow. You're thinking about more of being a seller and recouping assets for this next draft class. But when players like this become available, I mean, it is your duty as a GM to make the calls. It's your duty to, hey, man, I mean, Jayden Daniels over here, talk to Jayden Daniels, ask him what he thinks about the player, ask him why, have you been in contact with him this year? What's going on down there? What's up with his head? What's up with the concentration drops? What does the shoulder look like? You're going to ask the team, you're going to ask the player, things like that. I mean, you got to make the calls, you got to ask the questions. Realistically, if you're Washington, and you're staring at a 23-year-old player that has shown that he can have blue level upside in this league, and you just paid Terry McLaurin, you have the years of team control with Brian Thomas Jr., who would have to get re-signed the same time as Jayden Daniels. So that would become a very expensive offseason, as we've seen, with T. Higgins and, Jamar Chase and things like that. But I mean, is he Jamar Chase? I mean, we don't know yet. But the way that LSU turns these wide receivers out, I mean, he's a pretty damn good player. But again, first-round wide receivers to re-up on the market are very expensive. So that said, it's just something you have to do as just for the lifeblood of your organization. I mean, whether we were going to go into this draft with the plan of maybe drafting a C.J. Daniels, Casey Conception, whatever it is, third, fourth, second-round player, whatever, however you work the assets and things like that, whatever, we come away with in the end of the draft, you're going to go into the draft with a plan. You're going to have players that you've identified as commanders and things like that that really fit your offense and things like that, just like Jalen Lane, just like Luke McCaffrey, just like, Jerson Newton, just as Mikey Sanders still, things like that. And we've seen these guys really, really key on certain types of attitudes and things like that. So you have to look back at your grade that you had on Brian Thomas Jr. coming out of LSU before he went to Jacksonville. You have to take into account what he did last year. You also have to take into account this year, the injury and things like that. So, I mean, just going back in my notes, elite deep speed, concentration drops the year before, 1 year starter, 1 year production, things like that I was noticing with Brian Thomas Jr. Man, really, really blew up into the scene and took it to the next level. Sort of towards the end of his second to last year at LSU. Really started to kind of click then, and then you could just tell that the work ethic between him, Malik Neighbors, and then Jayden Daniels, it really, really took off his last year in college. Runs with power, can run after the catch, good in the screen game, good over the top, has three level attack, can catch through contact, but does have constant lapses with concentration drops over the middle sometimes. Can make the great play, but needs to sometimes refocus on catching the easy play. Very good at getting off press coverage, and man has really, really good length, uses his size and physicality to get off press and on press man coverage. Knows how to sit into a zone, really use his speed in multiple layers and break down to his routes. Very good for his size, things like that. These are just keys that I have on notes for Brian Thomas Jr. Coming out in the draft. So again, the other thing that I noted about Brian Thomas Jr. could be the premier player in this draft at the wide receiver position if everything goes right, if he goes to a team that really, really accentuates the way that they play this guy. Last year, you saw it. I mean, he was very much on pace to be that guy. So, with Marvin Harrison Jr. and other guys that came out in that class, Malik Neighbors in his own right, and for everything that he's doing with New York, injuries kind of suck, but, he's a really, really good player. There were just a lot of guys in that wide receiver class, man, and Brian Thomas Jr. has the skill set to be better than all of them. And last year he was on pace to do these things. The concentration drops have kind of showed up again this year. So, I mean, there's something to it. There could be something going on in his personal life. You just don't know. But again, these are just things that I want to kind of say. Like I said, you want to kind of dig down into your notes. You're going to reassess where you were about the player. You're going to ask Jayden Daniels, if you're Adam Peters, what you want to do. I mean, because there's going to be teams in this bidding. So, I mean, you're just thinking you're going to get this guy for a deal or a steal. You're probably bidding against somebody that's willing to pay more than what you even have in assets collectively currently. Maybe you trade a player, things like that. Could you get rid of a defensive piece? I mean, getting rid of a defensive piece for this team right now would be really, really hard because we're already struggling on defense. But if you're looking long term, if there's a player on defense that is going to be coming up into a contract year this year that you're probably not going to re-sign, maybe you make it happen. But again, putting another hole in this defense, it's going to be really, really hard to do. But if it is a player that you maybe potentially could be looking to walk away from at the end of this season, maybe you pull the trigger on this trade. Whatever the results, like I said, man, this season is all he had ever since the beginning of the season. Whatever the results of this season end up being, you want to be able to find some continuity going forward. You want the young and developing bright spots on your team to be playing their best football. You want them to have gotten reps and looking forward into year 3 of their, or year 2 or year 3 or whatever it is, the guys that are here going forward long term. You want to see these guys having an impact. Well, this would be a player that would be looking for a long-term, you're looking for a long-term commitment with this guy. You're looking for a long-term impact with this guy. And like I said, I mean, he would be re-signing the same year as Jayden Daniels. I think that would be a really complicated issue. So it's another thing you have to think about going forward because, you want your contracts to kind of line up a certain way. Mikey Sammer still will be coming up at that same time. So with Jerzon Newton, I mean, there's a lot of players that we took in that draft, Brandon Coleman, guys like that. Jordan McGee, we're going to start seeing him more on the field. He's going to be due for a contract like, the year before Jayden Daniels, with the 5th-year option. But I think you lock Jayden Daniels up before it even gets to the 5th-year option just by things that he's shown. If next year he stays fully healthy and, you're back on track, with your roster development, a more healthy season. You go through the league, you see the development and you see everything that you've seen and known this guy to be. You're probably re-signing him at the end of next year. At the first year of availability, just so you still have the 2 years that you already have on his rookie deal and you're adding years long term while the cap is down. It'll just be cheaper going forward. Thinking ahead like that really does make a difference long term. You've seen the Chiefs be able to manipulate their cap because they signed Patrick Mahomes so much earlier than his contract was running out for. So you still had the years of control that you already had with him. Long term, they put a ton of money at that time into the cap, but they put it down the road and they've been able to work and rework the deal going forward. So I think Jayden Daniels is kind of in the avenue of doing something like that, and it gives you the best opportunity to continue to build on that second contract going forward. So again, Brian Thomas Jr., man, hell of a player. You got to at least field the call. Would I expect this to happen? No. Would I be upset if it happened? No, man. I'd be elated to add a guy like this with Terry McLaurin, with Deebo Samuel. It's going to happen this weekend before the Chiefs. No. Does it do anything for you for the Chiefs game? No. You got to really figure out where the shoulder's at. You got to figure out where the player's at mentally. You're not allowed to call him and things like that, but I think that's where, having a little insight with Jayden Daniels and things like that. I mean, these are kind of little perks that you get when you have guys that are, friends on and off the field, things like that. You can kind of get a little bit more intel, things like that. So you would know a little bit more about this situation, I think, than you would know about that Marshawn Lattimore thing as far as the hamstring and things go, because the team is going to tell you, oh yeah, he's good. We're just being precautionary with him. Well, Jayden Daniels would really, really know everything that's coming from Brian Thomas Jr., but everything that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to tell you, again, is from the player side. Hey, yeah, he's good. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good to go. But, whatever it is, there has to be a reasoning for what's going on for this season for Brian Thomas Jr. So again, there's a lot of reasons to make the calls. You got to make the call. You're trying to build a team long term. This is a developmental piece that would go a long way for this team long term. And then I wanted to get into this game right here, man, because again, I've already mentioned his name, Casey Conception, one of the wide receivers for Texas A&M. He was transferred last year. Last year had a really good season with where he was transferred to Texas A&M. He is going to be a stud wide receiver in this league. I'm actually a little bit more high on Mario Craver, the wide receiver that's not eligible to come out until next year or the year after. Craver is a dynamic piece, man. He has some juice. He's a little bit smaller, and like sometimes you look into them small guys in college, man. They're so electric. They get into the league. Sometimes they don't hold up to the wear and tear that the way that you use them and the way things that they specialize in, because they start getting beat up over the middle and things like that. But Craver can beat you over the top. He's a really, really good player. Their quarterback, man, the Texas A&M, man, he's almost done the Jayden Daniels thing, with where last year, he was playing zone read, things like that, and then he developed his nuances of his game, man. He almost struggles with the same exact things, which are like the little underneath things at times when his feet are bad, that Jayden Daniels kind of showed his last year at LSU. But this Texas A&M team is deep, man. I got other notes here too. This is what I'm going off of. The reason that I'm trying to bring it up is, when I'm looking at defense for this draft, edge is a pivotal key. So I brought this game up specifically because You have Whit Weeks and Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins, when he's on the field, is a stud. He's a stud. He's a top 15 pick at linebacker when healthy. The issue is health. Availability matters. And as you can tell, if you're a Commanders fan this year, when you start losing starters, it's hard to get that level of play from players behind him. But Harold Perkins and then Whit Weeks. Torian York from the defense on Texas A&M, edge rusher linebacker. And then there's Cassius Howe on the other side. Anybody that watched this game last night knows that Cassius Howe, man, that dude is a force, man. This guy is a very refined player, a graduate senior. This dude's technique, from everything that I've seen him progress into as a graduate senior from year 1 in college to year 5, I think it is now. Dude, this dude is a very refined football player. Might be a little bit older than, the juniors and things like that are going to come out at this edge class, but there are a lot of graduate seniors that are playing really, really good football this year in college football. I mean, Kamara at IU. You got Caden Curry, Torian York. Torian York's another senior. You have another, Akeem Mazador, I've talked about a lot from Miami U. He's a graduate senior. There's a lot of really good graduate senior edge rushers, man. And the only thing that you worry about with them is how quick can they get up to speed in the NFL. When you look at Cassius Howe and his technique, the refinement that he has to his position, maybe he doesn't progress much more past what he is right now. Maybe he is almost topping out, and you're seeing what it is in college football. What will it be in the NFL? Well, it looks like he's probably a fringe 8 to 12 sack a year guy. With the refinement, the way that you see him use his hands, the dip that he has, the angles of his bend and things like that, the way that he plays, he's a really, really solid player. And then you got Scooby Williams, linebacker from Texas A&M, man. He's another really good player, man. He's kind of dealt with some injuries this season in its own right. But again, man, this is just a team that has a lot of defensive studs coming out, and so does LSU, man. LSU has one of my top graded corners in the whole class. He's a Virginia Tech transfer, Delane. I think he's number 4. Dude is a absolute stud at LSU, man. This defensive class is going to be what a transcendent for a lot of teams. A lot of teams that need some defensive pieces to get over the top in the state of their rebuild, man. In the 3rd round, you're going to be drafting a starter, man. In the 3rd round, you're going to be getting guys that can play really, really good football. Like Kelly Jones from Mississippi State. He's a really, really tall 6'4" corner, man, that plays really, really good man coverage. Had an interception yesterday. A lot of flags at the end of the Texas game. I'm not going to say nothing about that. I'm just going to say that being down 18 points and then all the pass interference calls, all the things, it just, you can say that Mississippi State imploded, things like that. Of course, Texas made the plays to come back into the game. But it was getting kind of obvious, man. It was kind of weird. But Kelly Jones was a clean player. They did flag him twice in the end zone in the red zone drill twice. I thought it was good coverage on the one. The one was kind of ticky tacky. The other one was a PI, but man, he had a really good game. He had some really good breakouts, man. You see his recovery speed and things like that. The length to recover really makes it hard to drop the ball into a bucket over the top because he can be beat and still get over the top and block the ball. It's the reason I'm really, really high on him. LSU, ton of players. Another player from the SEC, Kendrick Falk, man. This is a big linebacker, man. He's a big, long, physical player, man. Usually when you're that long, you don't play with the type of play strength that Kendrick Falk has. He's not really getting home right now, but his pass rush variances, like pressure grades and things like that, are really, really matching what you're seeing on tape. He is getting there. He's just not getting the sack or whatever for whatever reason. But Auburn isn't, there's things that go on at Auburn that, sometimes you just don't always see consistent play. But they're still building that team, collectively with the identity. I think Auburn will be fine in a couple years with that staff. But Kendrick Falk is a guy that I want to bring up too, because there's a ton of edge rushers in this SEC right now. LT Overton, all these guys, Ugalele at Oregon. Like I said, I've already mentioned Mekil Kamara, and then there's another Kamara, Bengali Kamara from Kansas, another guy. This is going to be a really deep class of edge rushers. So again, when you're talking about the Brian Thomas Jr., the trade value and things like that, you have to take into account the things that, is coming into this next draft class. Can you get a better, a similar player with better value, later in the draft and things like that are going to give you, somewhat close to an impact from what you're going to get from a Brian Thomas Jr. with the questions that you now have going forward? Again, I bring up C.J. Daniels. Casey Conception from this game in its own right is a really, really good player. I mean, it's another reason why you're like, man, whoever gets this kid is going to really, really get a find. He has really refined his level of play, his technique, and things like that over his time at, in college. C.J. Daniels was at LSU, transferred to Miami U. Man, he is making big time catches. I mean, catches over top of players that are in position in defense. Man, like that translates to the NFL. When you can catch through contact, when you can play through physical, when you can catch through physicality, man, like that translates to the NFL. And he can separate. He can separate. It's not like he's not separating in college. So a lot of times when you have these guys that have catch through contact and things like that, a lot of times it's because they're not separating in college. Well, I'm talking about the catch yesterday was on a fade route. You're not going to get much separation off that route unless you get it off the line of scrimmage. And we've seen C.J. Daniels route guys up at the line of scrimmage, man. It's the reason I'm really high on him, the Miami U wide receiver that transferred from LSU last year. And LSU has good wide receivers in their own right. Texas A&M's got some wide receivers, like I said, with Craver and Conception, man. You got some guys at Mississippi State. You got guys all over the land in college football. You got Mekhi Lemon out there balling his ass off at USC. You got a couple good wide receivers at Maryland and, Michigan and Ohio State. We already know what they are with Cornell Tate and things like that. Just really, really dynamic pass catchers, man. And it was something that was a big question for me coming into the year, man. When I look at my binder and I look at all the notes that I had coming into this year, man, I was like, could this be the guy? Could this be the guy? And we already know, but Denzel Boston's probably my favorite guy in the whole class. He's balling the hell out in Washington. He's going to be a stud. I really, really like Denzel Boston. I think he fits everything you need, the height, weight, speed, things like that, the things that you give. That's why I was talking about Brian Thomas Jr. Very similar. Brian Thomas Jr. has a little bit more game-breaking speed from the position than Denzel Boston does, but Denzel Boston has really, really grown into a really, really good receiver at UW. So again, man, it's just like to talk about these guys because there's just a ton of reasons in college football that you're looking ahead, and it's really, really hard to make trades at the trade deadline. Plus, what impact are you going to get from the player at the trade deadline if they're already dealing with injury, if they're already having like concentrational issues or something off the field? How much better are you going to get when they have to come in and start learning to the scheme? You're really not looking to translate much. I don't, like I said, I'm not writing the season off for the Washington Commanders. They can still turn it around. There's a lot of football to be played. It's nothing like getting a win this week. It would be a tough damn task, but you get a win against Kansas City, that can change your whole damn season. You're going to have to do it with a backup quarterback, but you're finally getting your wide receivers back. Do I expect a win? As I said, no. But again, man, there's a lot of things to be excited about for this team. Adding a Brian Thomas type player, that's a really, really long-term fit. That's why you have to entertain the idea of doing it. Do you make the trade? I don't know. That's really on AP and what he feels the value is, what the cost is, and things like that, and going forward. Like I said, the reason for me that you have to at least talk about it is the Jayden Daniels effect, is the relationship with Jayden Daniels. But when you're looking at this class, this wide receiver class, this edge class, this linebacker class, the safety class, and all these positions that you have holes on defense, all the places that you have holes, on offense that need to get a little bit younger. This draft offers a lot of things in those departments, man, throughout the whole draft that when you think about making a trade for a Brian Thomas Jr., man, you're giving up some of the assets, man. And honestly, this draft class is loaded. I did not think I was going to be this high on this draft class come this point this year as I am outside of edge and linebacker and safety. But dude, and that wasn't even that. Like I said, we still haven't even talked about offensive line because I do that towards the end of the year. Like I'm probably about 4 games away from really starting to lock my offensive line in. But again, that said, this offensive line class is loaded. I think another reason that I'm not even talking about them in piece is because if Washington was going to make an offensive line addition, it would have to be a first round guy that fell to like the second or third round, maybe because of injury or something like that. Then the talent's too high, you just can't pass on it. But I think with everything that we've done with Laramie Tunsil, Josh Connerly Jr., but Brandon Coleman, I think there's some developmental pieces there. Outside of going center, the Iowa Center, the Florida Center, things like that. I think you're going to probably pass that up. And like I said, you'd have to that player would have to be sitting there in the second, third round. And you're just like, man, the talent's too high to pass on. We're going to make this pick. So again, thank you guys for checking out the pod, man. Like I said, I had to talk about this Brian Thomas Jr. thing just because it was came out of nowhere yesterday. I felt like it was directly linked to this team just because you have the injuries at the wide receiver position and things like that have kind of plagued this team. I felt like it needed to be discussed and things like that. And like I said, it has long term impact on the team because of the years of team control that you still have with his rookie deal. So again, I just felt like it fit. Like I said, I still kind of stand on the ground that trading for veteran players, it's not something that I prefer to do. This is one of those situations where I'm like, okay, well, you got to at least make the calls. You got to at least like look into it and do your homework on it, because this is the type of thing that does actually fit your long-term vision for your build. If the calls could be right, then yes, you have to explore it. But again, like I said, I tend not to be normally on this train. I just so happen to be another year that I am kind of on this train with a player that's kind of coming out of nowhere as far as the expectations, man. It's just type of player I would never even considered it before. I talked about, like the Jalen Waddles and the Chris Olaves. Those would be more expected because they're at the end of their first contract or beyond. So again, those are the type of pieces that move generally when you're talking about the trade deadline and things like that. So again, anyway, I appreciate it, man. This was a really fun episode for me. I got to talk about a lot of football, and I appreciate you guys if you stuck around and listened. I appreciate you guys anyway for checking the pod out and giving me likes, comments, anything like that. I appreciate it, man. It's a lot of work that I do with this, man. So just for anybody that took the time to listen, I really appreciate you. And have a blessed day, man. And hopefully your team does good this Sunday, and hopefully Washington can find a way to get a win, man. I'll keep coming with more college breakdowns, some Commanders pods and things like that. And, there's a lot of things to come on this pod, so I appreciate y'all's time. Have a blessed one. Peace.